Eleanor yelled, "Your kid took the missing $10,000 from the safe." Her voice cracked the room in half. Forks froze midair. The smell of roast chicken turned sour in my throat. Alara didn't even blink. "We saw him near it." She snapped, her tone flat. "Certain." Leo just stood there, dirt still on his sneakers from the backyard, eyes wide like he couldn't breathe. Clara, didn't argue. Didn't ask why they thought a child could steal what adults kept losing. I reached into my tote set, a small silver USB on the table, and said quietly, "Then let's see who really did." The night before that accusation, everything still looked normal, at least from the outside. My parents' house smelled like coffee and lemon cleaner, the kind of scent that pretends nothing bad ever happens here. Eleanor hummed while folding napkins. Thomas checked the grill. Alara scrolled through her phone, pretending to be bored. Julian sat beside her, always with that lazy smirk, the kind that said he pitied everyone but himself. Leo was in the backyard drawing chalk planets on the patio. He's 11, quiet, the kind of kid who still asks before opening the fridge. After my divorce, we moved into a small rental a few streets away. I work freelance accounting jobs, barely enough to keep things steady. My parents started helping with groceries, tuition, small bills. I never asked, but I didn't refuse either. That help came with invisible strings, the kind Alara could pull whenever she wanted. The first time money disappeared, it was $100 from Eleanor's wallet. She brushed it off, laughed about senior moments, but her eyes flicked around the room a little too long. The second time, $300 vanished from Thomas's locked drawer. He said nothing, just checked the lock twice the next day. By the third time, $500 gone from Alara's purse, the silence turned poisonous. She said she'd left her bag upstairs while changing the baby. Her eyes landed on me, then slid toward the window where Leo's shoes were lined up. She didn't say the words, but I heard them anyway. After that, Thomas installed a safe in his office, one of those heavy fireproof ones bolted to the wall behind a shelf, a keypad code only he, Eleanor, Alara, and Julian knew. He told me over coffee, "I just want peace in this house again." I nodded. But peace isn't what happens when you build walls. Money kept vanishing. Small amounts at first, then bigger. 2,000 gone one week, 10,000 the next. No broken locks, no footprints, just tension thick enough to taste. Eleanor started triple-checking her purse whenever Leo walked by. Alara began whispering to Julian at the dinner table. Thomas kept a record of every withdrawal, every bill. I kept my mouth shut and watched it all rot. When Eleanor laughed, it sounded rehearsed. When Alara smiled, it felt like a dare. And Julian, he had started avoiding eye contact with everyone except the safe. I saw it in passing, the way his gaze lingered just a second too long on that office door. I told Thomas what I'd seen. He didn't flinch. "Then it's time," he said. That same afternoon, we hid a motion camera inside a fake smoke detector angled right at the safe. Only he and I knew. He patted my shoulder before leaving for work. "If it's who I think it is," he said quietly, "I'll need proof, not guesses." I didn't realize how soon that proof would come, right before the whole family turned on my son. After Thomas installed the camera, I thought things might settle. They didn't. The tension only learned how to whisper. At dinner, conversations died halfway through. Eleanor stared at her plate more than she ate. Alara kept checking her phone like there was a script she needed to follow. Julian just kept drinking water, silent, twitchy, always near the office. A week later, $2,000 went missing. Another week, 10,000. Clean, no forced entry. Nothing but panic and blame floating in the air like smoke. Eleanor called a family meeting. The word family never sounded so cruel. We sat in the living room, lights too bright, silence too loud. She started softly, the way she always does before she strikes. Someone's been taking money from the safe again. Then her eyes landed on Leo. You were in there yesterday, weren't you? Leo blinked, confused. Grandpa asked me to hand him his glasses. Alara cut in before I could speak. We saw him near it. Her tone matter-of-fact, confident like a cop reading charges. The room tilted. For a second, I couldn't hear. My pulse was in my throat. Leo looked at me, waiting for me to defend him. I opened my mouth, but no words came. Every pair of eyes in that room was already convinced. Julian leaned back, crossed his arms, let it happen. That silence, his silence was the confirmation everyone needed. Leo's hands shook. His voice cracked when he said, I didn't take anything. Something inside me broke. It wasn't loud. It was the quiet kind of break, the one that rearranges you. I wanted to scream, to throw the accusation back at them. Instead, I looked at my son and said, Go get your sketchbook. Wait for me in the car. He obeyed without a sound. When the door closed behind him, the air felt colder. Eleanor exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for years. I'm sorry, Clara, but it keeps happening. What else are we supposed to think? I smiled small and sharp. Maybe the problem isn't who you think it is. Alara scoffed. You always twist things. Julian finally spoke. If you've got something to say, say it. Oh, I will, I said soon. No one knew. Thomas had been watching from the hallway. Later that night, he knocked on my door and handed me the drive. Footage is ready, he said. It's all there. I stared at the little silver USB like it weighed 100 pounds, proof. The thing everyone claimed to want, but no one was ready for. The next day, Eleanor called again. Her voice was colder this time. Your kid took the missing $10,000. That was when I stopped explaining and started showing. That Sunday felt wrong from the start. The air was too still, like the house itself was waiting for something ugly. I brought Leo over for dinner because Thomas insisted, let's clear the air, he'd said. But clarity isn't what my family does. We sat in the living room, the TV murmuring some cooking show no one was watching. The baby monitor hummed on the table beside Eleanor's coffee cup. Thomas was in his office checking the safe again. Alara scrolled. Julian stared at nothing. Leo sat beside me, swinging his leg, quiet. Then Eleanor said it. Your kid took the missing $10,000 from the safe. The sound hit like glass shattering. I didn't even look at her at first. I just stared at Leo's face as the color drained from it. Alara added, calm and sure. We saw him near it. That's how you know someone's been rehearsing their lie when they say it like a line they've practiced in the mirror. Julian didn't say a word. He kept his eyes on the TV like if he ignored us long enough, truth would skip him entirely. I didn't defend Leo. Didn't beg. My hands moved before my mouth did. I reached into my tote, pulled out the small silver USB Thomas had given me, and placed it right in the center of the coffee table. The click it made when it hit the wood was louder than anyone's voice. Eleanor frowned. What's that? Footage, I said. My voice sounded steady, almost too calm. You wanted proof. Here it is. No one moved. Play it, I told them. Thomas appeared in the doorway, reading the tension before I even explained. He took the drive, disappeared into the office, and closed the door behind him. 5 minutes. That's how long it took. Alara stood up halfway, then sat back down. Eleanor wrung her hands. Julian didn't breathe. Leo pressed against me, small and silent. When Thomas came back, he didn't look at anyone. He just said, "You should all see this." We followed him into the office. The room smelled of dust and old carpet. The monitor glowed cold blue. The file name read October 21st, 1:40 a.m. The video played, grainy, quiet, timestamp blinking. The office door opened. A figure stepped in. Alara gasped first. Julian. He moved like he'd done it before, walked straight to the safe, entered. The code, opened it, and stuffed stacks of hundreds into a black duffel bag, calm, efficient, like muscle memory. Leo's reflection flickered on the screen, his eyes huge, confused. Then Julian's face appeared in full view. Thomas paused the frame. No one spoke. Julian's skin turned white. He turned and walked out the front door without a single word. And that's how silence can end a war louder than any scream. Julian didn't come home that night. He left without his jacket, without his car keys, without a single word of defense. The front door slammed once, and the echo stayed long after the sound was gone. Eleanor sat down on the couch and covered her mouth, muttering something about needing to check on the baby. Alara didn't move. She just stood in front of the paused video like it might suddenly change if she stared hard enough. Thomas stayed in the office, still and silent, one hand on the mouse. Leo pressed against my arm. Mom, was that really Uncle Julian? His voice was so small, it broke something in me. Yeah, I whispered. It was. That night, nobody slept. The house felt stripped bare. You could hear the refrigerator hum, the wind through the vent, every creak of the floorboards, like the house itself was ashamed. The next morning, Julian's car was gone from the driveway. Alara's face looked hollow, her eyes swollen from crying or not sleeping, or both. She didn't look at me when I handed her a cup of coffee. She just said, "You didn't have to trap him like that." I almost laughed. Trap him? You think I made him steal? She flinched like my words hurt more than the truth itself. I didn't know, she said. I thought maybe Leo because that was easier. I cut her off. Easier than believing the man you sleep next to could lie to all of us. She didn't answer. When Thomas came downstairs, he carried printouts, freeze frames from the footage. Julian's tattoo visible on his wrist, the bills in his hands, the safe wide open. He laid them out like evidence in a courtroom. No police, he said. Not yet. But he's done. No more money. No more access. Eleanor whispered. But he's family. Thomas looked at her like she'd spoken another language. So was Leo. No one said anything after that. By noon, Alara's debit card stopped working. When she checked her account, it was empty. Julian had cleaned it out before he vanished, checking savings, everything. She sank to the floor with her phone in her hands, whispering his name over and over like maybe he'd hear her through the static. I didn't touch her. There was nothing left to say. That night, she came into my room, eyes red, voice flat. Show me all of it. I opened the laptop, played every file in silence. One by one, each theft, each night. Same bag, same calm movements. She watched every second. Halfway through, her hand covered her mouth, her shoulders shaking. When it ended, she just said, he did it more than once. 3 times that we know of, I told her. She stood and left without another word. Thomas started changing the locks that same night. New bolts, new codes, even cameras on the porch. He called his lawyer the next morning. By evening, Julian's name was removed from every account, every document, every insurance policy, wiped clean. 2 days later, a letter arrived in the mail. No return address, just our last name scrolled across the front. Inside was a note written in Julian's messy handwriting. I tried. I really did. No apology, no explanation, just a motel receipt from Reno. Alara read it once, folded it neatly, and said, he's gone. For weeks, the house felt like a shell. Eleanor refused to talk about the video, pretending it never happened. Thomas worked late, always on the phone. Leo barely spoke. I caught him sometimes standing in the hallway, staring at the locked office door. One night, Thomas sat at the table with a glass of whiskey and said quietly, when the money first started disappearing, I thought it might be him. I didn't respond. The truth already lived in the silence between us. Alara moved back into her old room. With the baby. She barely ate, barely talked. I thought maybe grief had swallowed her whole. Then one afternoon, she came to me and said, I want to see the footage again. I asked why. Because I need to hate him properly this time, she said. We watched it again. She didn't cry. When it ended, she said, he used us all. A few days later, she went to the bank and filed for divorce. Life didn't snap back to normal. It just changed shape. Leo started seeing a therapist. Eleanor baked too much bread. Thomas fixed everything in sight. Doors, fences, faucets, like fixing objects might fix us, too. Then just when the quiet started to feel real again, a car pulled into the driveway one night. Headlights cut across the curtains. Thomas opened the door first. Julian stood there under the porch light, thin, pale, a duffel bag hanging off one shoulder. His face was drawn, eyes hollow. He didn't step inside. He just reached into his pocket, pulled out an envelope, and dropped it on the mat. He turned and walked away without a word. Inside the envelope were casino chips, pawn slips, crumpled receipts, and one slip that froze us all. A pawn ticket for Alara's wedding ring, the one she'd hidden at the back of her closet after he left. He'd come back into the house, into the baby's room, somewhere. Somehow, he'd slipped inside again. Alara's knees gave out. That night, Thomas had every lock replaced before sunrise. When the locksmith left, the house was silent except for the ticking clock and the baby's faint breathing on the monitor. Eleanor whispered, I don't want to hear his name again. No one disagreed. 2 months later, the call came from Reno. Julian had overdosed in a motel room. No ID, no wallet, no excuses left. We buried him quietly. No speeches, no flowers, just a cold wind and the sound of dirt falling over wood. Standing there beside the grave, Alara said, he stole everything that mattered. But at least Leo got the truth. And I realized she was right. That truth had cost us $10,000 and a family we could never rebuild the same way again. After the funeral, the house went quiet in a different way, like grief had drained the last bit of noise. No one mentioned Julian again. Eleanor stopped setting an extra plate at dinner. Thomas barely looked at the chair where Julian used to sit. Even the baby seemed to sense the hush, sleeping longer, crying softer. Alara moved through the days like a shadow until one morning she knocked on my door. Her hair was tied up, eyes tired but steady. Thomas gave me a check, she said. $10,000. He said it's for Leo, for doubting him. She paused, swallowing hard. He said we all owe him more than that. I found Leo outside drawing on the patio again, this time bright chalk suns and rockets. When I handed him the check, he tilted his head. Did we win something? Kind of, I said. We just got back what was ours. That night, the family sat together for the first real dinner in months. The same roast chicken, the same table, but it felt lighter somehow. Elara poured wine. Thomas carved the meat. Eleanor even smiled. No one said Julian's name, but his absence finally felt like peace instead of punishment. After dessert, Elara looked across the table. I told Eleanor it was Leo, she said quietly. I didn't see anything. I just needed to believe it wasn't him. Leo kept eating, calm as ever. I knew, he said. Elara's lip trembled. I'm sorry. He nodded like forgiveness was easy when you're 11. When the plates were cleared, I stood at the sink, listening to their laughter drift through the house. It didn't sound perfect. It sounded real. Spring came quietly, the trees outside my parents' house blooming like they'd been waiting for us to notice again. Life didn't go back to what it was. It became something steadier, smaller, and honest. Elara found work. Leo laughed more. Eleanor learned to listen before she spoke. Sometimes I still think about that night, the accusation, the silence, the proof. Justice didn't roar. It whispered one frame at a time until no one could deny it. If you've ever been blamed for something you didn't do, tell me in the comments. You're not alone.